Hello and welcome back to From the Terrace by the fans.
For the fans.
There we go. It's good to be back, boys. As you can see, we're missing our hostess with the mostest, Danny Welton, today. So I've taken over the duties for a nice short one. But you can see that we're joined by Mr. James McAnally. How are we, mate?
I'm back very well. Thank you.
And Monsieur Daniel Wiltshire. How are you doing, fella?
Good. Very well.
Good. Right, so today, lads, I set you the task of trying to name your two English players that are the most talented, have had the most impact, basically the best two English players of the last 30 years. Now, we've all got our own two players. I'm hoping that all our players that we've chosen are different, so we can have a little debate about it. But get straight into it. Let's start with J Mac. Who are the two players that you've gone for and why?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge was, I suppose, open to interpretation. As you say, you could have looked at talent, you could have looked at impact, trophies, whatever it may be. I just took it for as simple as it is personally on one of the players in particular. I went for Ashley Cole, which might be a surprise. I'm not his biggest fan personally, but I just thought back over the last 30 years and I thought, how many English players have we had that have been the best in the world in their position? And there aren't many. But he was one that was the best left back in the world, arguably across a 7, 8 to 10 year period. And I don't think many people would argue with that either. So, you know, he won trophies at club level. Obviously, he was part of the golden generation that did fuck all. But yeah, he overcome the doubters. Like, as much as people like me don't really like him, Arsenal fans hate him. He's been called this, that, whatever. I don't think it can be denied how good he was, how consistent he was. Yeah, and I'd have him right up there. He's not the most glamorous player, but yeah, literally taking it, who's the best player? I think he was the one that was the best in his position for a long period of time.
I agree with all the points you raised about him. He was the best left back in the world for years. But any man that marries a woman like Cheryl Cole and cheats on her, he's suspect, if you ask me.
But she's a bitch.
You leave her alone, mate.
It's a football
she's a bitch.
podcast, isn't it?
You leave her alone. All I'm
saying
saying is Ashley Cole made some dumb decisions in his life. That was one of them.
Oh yeah, I think she's a beautiful woman, but I've got a feeling she's a bitch.
Listen, your feelings don't matter to me. We don't know her. She is a beauty.
She attacked a cleaner. Not here tonight. Cheryl Cole, if you're listening, come on.
Please.
Come on down.
Please.
Convince us otherwise.
Come and have your talk to them. My second one, I ummed and ahed all day with this, if I'm honest, because I really wanted to say Paul Scholes for many reasons. Well, I won't go into because I ended up siding with someone who actually plays for us now. I've gone for Harry Kane as my second one. I just think he's phenomenal. Again, when you just talk about the best players, Sterling arguably, can be within the conversation, but I think Harry Kane is just our standout player. He's the one that would be talked about in terms of like world 11s. He's showing a new side to his game. He's showing adaptability. He's not just a guy that puts up numbers in terms of goals. He's now obviously leading assist maker in the Premier League. I just think the Giz is an all-round unbelievable player. If he ends up leaving Tottenham, which if he wants to win trophies, he probably should. If he stays in England, I think he'll go on to break Shearer's record. He's captained us to a World Cup semi-final. He led a young team. I think he showed good leadership qualities throughout that as well. Top scorer in the World Cup, albeit helped by a hat-trick against Panama, who aren't the best. But yeah, I just think in terms of world-class talent at the moment and at the end of his career, I think he'll be talked about as one of, if not the best.
you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, I agree. I do think he is probably just behind Lewandowski as the best striker in the world at the moment. Yeah, I've got no arguments with his record. I wish he would have squared it to Sterling, but that's another story. No. Do you know what he is? He's a phenomenal talent. I think his record is unbelievable. He might look back on his career if he carries on this way, and Tottenham don't sort of progress and win any trophies, and think back and say, yeah, just like Shearer did. That's why he's not talked in the same breath as some of the other world class strikers out there, because he never won trophies. And at the end of the day, that's what you're judged on at the end of it. So if you're going to look back on it, scoring goals for Tottenham, brilliant, and getting their records unbelievable, maybe the Premier League record, but no trophies. You don't get talked in the same brackets as the Omris, as the Rooneys. So we'll see.
Again, I agree. I think if we move this debate on it further, like on another 10 years, then you'd be looking probably, at Harry Kane. But I think if we go, I just think there's other players that, fair enough, he is England's best player at the minute. There's no doubt about that. His finishing is unbelievable. He's done it in the Premier League year on year. He's fought injuries and been out for months and still always been in the shout for Golden Boot. I just think there's other players that had a little bit more than what he has. Just a little something.
Yeah, he's progressing his game recently. I think they've been talking about him sort of redefining what the striker does, and I agree. I think he's hold-up play. I think his passing range is unbelievable. He's almost slipped into the Rooney role of dropping deep and playing almost behind the striker sometimes. So, yeah, he's a brilliant player. There's no two ways about it.
All right, so clearly, you agree with the two players being brilliant, but you don't agree with the two players. So what two have you gone for?
Yeah, I interpreted it slightly different to just being the best player that England have had. I thought about it as like talent-wise, natural ability, and players that sort of lit up the game. If I'm going to go, I had two players in mind. So if we're going to go what we're going to this narrative, then I'll change my player that I was going to have originally. My two are Michael Owen and John Terry. Michael Owen, because I think barring injuries, he would have broke all records for a striker. His record was unbelievable. The man won the Ballon d'Or in 2001. Sometimes unplayable. His goal against Argentina is arguably one of the greatest World Cup goals that we've seen, by any player. You talk about the, sort of defining moments, and impact-wise, he was amazing. And yeah, I think injuries just ruined him. I think he's got a bad reputation almost now because his career kind of tailed off towards the end, and he went to a couple of teams that didn't quite have the same impact. Newcastle won't think fondly of him. Time at Manchester United wasn't great, but he spell at Liverpool when he was on form and he was fit. It's a bit like Torres. He obviously lived off that pace and electrifying sort of movement. And once you lose that as a striker, it damages you massively. But I think for natural ability, he was unreal. And I think he would have broke all records, 100%, if he'd have carried on.
Yeah, man, I agree. He's the player that made me sort of fall in love with football and Liverpool. He was the first sort of player I ever idolised and looked at as someone as I wanted to be like him. And you're right, man. He was electrifying. He won games by himself. I remember the Arsenal FA Cup final. We got battered, absolutely battered that game. I don't think I've ever seen us actually get outplayed by a team that bad in a game of football. They destroyed us, and just 2 moments of Owen brilliance, and the game turned on its head, and we won the FA Cup. He was, and you're right, injuries just destroyed him. I also think that he got a bad rap from some of his other moves because a lot of people didn't know the full story and were only going on what was sort of in the media and what certain people were saying. And I have watched a few interviews with Michael, and where he sort of tried to explain himself and said what's happened, especially with the stuff at Newcastle. And I think once you understand that a little bit more, you can't have nothing but respect for the man. I still don't understand how some Liverpool fans call him a Judas and don't think that he's worthy of representing our club. I think it's an absolute joke. What that guy did, he's in the same breath as Steven Gerrard. Michael Owen carried us for years. He was our only world-class player for a long, long time. And Liverpool fans now, because he joined Man United, he wanted another chance at winning a Premier League title. You don't turn down Sir Alex Ferguson. It's just one of those things. Like, if you're a born winner, like Michael Owen was, it's hard to turn down a move like that, especially when you've had moves that haven't worked out for you. Do you know what I mean? So I was pissed at the time, but I forgave him. And he's in with a shout of being up there as one of the greatest English players in the last 30 years, for sure.
Yeah. And then the other one, if we're going to sort of go how we're going at the moment, John Terry. I love him. I always love him. But when you break it down properly, he's the most successful centre-back England have ever produced. Arguably the greatest defender to play in the Premier League, if not the entire English league. You know, his records speaks for itself. Unbelievable player. I think, again, outside of football, things sort of went against him. Obviously, people don't look at him in a great light for the whole thing of, you know, we know what it is that's gone on. But if you're talking about a pure talented player, someone that performed at the highest level all through his career. I mean, he won the Premier League at the back end of his career with Chelsea and played every minute of that one under Conte. So he's got to be up there with the greatest English players of all time. You know, I know this centre back's not a glamorous role, but it's an important role, a vital role, and he was captain of potentially one of the best Premier League sides of all time. Yeah, I just think his record speaks for itself. I think if we're talking sort of pure talent and pure sort of natural ability and success, then JT's within the shout.
Yeah, I'm glad you said one of the best Premier League teams, by the way. No, Conte the striker, so I'll have a go at the centre back. I'll be honest, JT, when the question was put to me, he was the first person I actually thought of before. He was my initial, he's unreal. He was the best, potentially the best in the world for a spell. Then obviously I sort of moved on and thought about it a bit more and diverted towards Ashley Cole. But for similar reasons, I'd have to put JT in with a shout. He kind of epitomises the phrase captain, lead the legend when it comes to Chelsea. Other things obviously put him in a bad light, but yeah, you can't deny that, it's all been said about over many years. He's had, different partners with different, with England, with Chelsea, and they've always been strong, whether it be Carvalho, Rio, sorry. He was underrated on the ball. He could ping a 60-yard pass with both feet. He pitched in with his share of goals every year. Important goals as well at times. I remember him scoring in Champions Leagues against Liverpool and stuff like that. Those big games during the noughties.
Highest scoring defender in the league.
Yeah, and that's without any penalties and stuff. Like a lot of defenders have been up there taking penalties or free kicks or things like that. So it's these things it's hard to disagree with sometimes, even though you've got your own light. Obviously, with the Michael Owen one, it's a slightly different interpretation, and obviously you've changed the JT from Joe Cole you mentioned to me earlier. Another great talent. It's hard to argue with these things, isn't it? Because it's one of those. It's like mine's better, but JT was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was. Now again, not so much. I wouldn't say it's so much different. I just looked at it in terms of who I've looked at in my lifetime watching football from an English perspective, and who I have thought is the best player in the world in their position.
And I guess
now, one of them was Titus Bramble.
Oh yeah, okay.
But obviously,
generational talent.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? You can't. It's hard to look past someone like Titus Bramble, but I had to leave him out, and it hurt. Another one I had to leave out was Big Emil Heskey. We all know how much I love Emil Heskey.
The power.
Absolute machine, mate. He's underrated, but we'll save that for another podcast. We're not going to talk about Heskey today.
Lead hammer.
We could be here for hours. But yeah, go on. You can guess my first one if you want, Jay.
If it's not 2 Liverpool players, I'll be shocked.
It's one Liverpool player. They're both Scousers, but one Liverpool player.
All right. I know which one it'll be, maybe.
Cara. Go on, Cara.
Big J-Mo. Listen, I'll never, ever not respect J-Mo. Apart from what he did outside the game, we'll forget about that. Like, in football, I've got a lot of respect for Jamie Carragher.
Just don't give it to him in traffic.
No, yeah. No, technically, Jamie Carragher, he'll admit this, technically he wasn't that great. But my God, the guy gave 110% every game. But yeah, no, obviously, you boys have known me for years. I've always idolised Steven Gerrard. He's always been my favourite player. I copied his boots for 10 years, even though I played centre-back. I just think he was very unlucky that he played in such shit Liverpool sides. Like, I followed Liverpool from a boy, and there's been maybe 2 or 3 times in Gerrard's Liverpool career where I've looked at a squad of players and thought, you know what? This team could be good enough to challenge and win things. And we have challenged a couple of times, but we've just never had enough compared to the likes of United's, Chelsea's, who just had squads that were unbelievable. And obviously, I would have hated to have seen Gerrard play for any other club in world football, let alone the Premier League. But again, he's a bit like the Harry Kane thing. Yeah, I know Gerrard won Champions Leagues and FA Cups, and domestically we won quite a few in his tenure with us, but the Premier League was the one that evaded him, and it was the one that he wanted and we all wanted. And he had the chance to move and try and do that, but he didn't. He eventually stuck around and he stayed with, his boyhood club. And the dude carried a city for, 10 to 15 years? It wasn't just the football team. It wasn't the players on the pitch. It was the owners. It was the fans in the stadium, the fans in the city. He literally carried the whole of Liverpool on his back for 15 years. And I think to be able to do that the way he did, it takes a big man to be able to do that. And that's not even talking about his technical ability on the pitch. The dude was an absolute powerhouse. He went from being a reckless young kid who would run here, there and everywhere, 2-foot lunging people, taking chunks out of everyone he played against, to eventually ending his career almost playing as a quarterback type role. He's literally done it all. He's played the number 10. He's played out wide, left, right. He even played right back a few games. I just think he was a player that had everything, absolutely everything. I don't think there's anything you could look at in a football sense and say that Steven Gerrard could not do it.
Premier League title.
Apart from that, I've already spoken about that. Painful.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. But we can go on to another debate. Otherwise, we can sit all night because I have my own opinions on who I think is the greatest, particularly in that kind of position. My only argument would be, did he shine so bright because he was in the team that he was in? Because, in my opinion, if he was put among other great players for a long period of time, I don't think he would have been so focused on than he would have if he was at Liverpool, where he was the main focal point of everything, which is unbelievable. And he did carry you for years and years, and there's no denying he's a phenomenal football player. Phenomenal. You don't get spoke about the way he does without sort of having the talent that he does. But I just think internationally he never really did it for England. And I also don't think he would have shone as bright in another team, personally.
I hear you.
But I do think he's phenomenal.
He walks into any team in the world.
I love him, to be fair.
With his fucking chest puffed out, big man bollocks walking through the door, every team he wants, mate. He's Steven Gerrard.
I have no doubt. Yeah.
All right, stay tuned, because we will be bringing you another debate very, very soon, which links very much into this, man.
That one will be longer.
If the people that do this podcast are anything to go by, we could be in for a fiery chat, lads. Anyway, moving on. The second player I chose, and do you know what? I'm not going to lie. It hurt me a little bit to choose this player, because regardless of how good the guy was, and I mean he was top tier, top notch. He played for Liverpool's two biggest rivals. It's Mr. Wayne Rooney. He played for Everton and Man United. And I hated him at club level, but loved him when he put on an England shirt. But now he's player manager at Derby and whatnot. You can be a bit more, you got a bit more perspective on Rooney's career as a Liverpool fan. You can sit back now, because he's not in the game anymore at the highest level, and appreciate that that man was nothing short of sensational. From the moment he burst onto the scene, Micah Richards quote, with Everton, he didn't look back. He did not look back. And it's not just that. I love players that have a nasty side to them, have a little bit of edge to them, and that can just blow at any moment. And he was a firework. He was explosive. He just terrorised people left, right and centre. That Euros with England, which finished in unfortunate circumstances, but he fucking put himself on the map. And then he went to United, their leading scorer, England's leading scorer. The dude just broke records left, right and centre. He could do everything. He could pass, shoot, free kicks, penalties, corners, head, you name it, Rooney could do it. And personally, I think that Wayne Rooney is the biggest talent that we've created as a nation ever. And it does hurt me to say that, because like I said, he was a rival of the teams that I like, the team that I love. And I used to absolutely hate him. But you can't deny a man that's got that much talent. And he's an horrible bastard.
You can't deny his record. And obviously I love him. I love him to pieces. He's, as you said, he's record scorer for my two teams. I think the thing that always seems to let Wazza down is the fact that there's always this feeling that he never quite fulfilled what he could do. There was always that feeling that he would be Messi, Ronaldo level, and he would be challenging those boys. And even though he did smash, well, not smash, but even though he broke the record of Bobby Charlton, and obviously for both England and United, there's just always that little a disappointment, whether it be the fact he never reached his potential, the fact that, like some of the other great players that we've mentioned already tonight, the fact that that talent was never actually properly put onto the international stage. Because as much as he broke the record, and you can't deny what an achievement that is, again, another argument comes back to the fact that a lot of those goals were scored in easy qualifiers and were penalties rather than being big goals in finals and stuff like that. So as much as I love Wazza, and I always will, yeah, I don't know. There's always that, just that, as I said, that air of disappointment, or just that thing that what could have been.
I hear that.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was very, very unlucky to. He come onto the scene in the 2004 Euros. Realistically, that was where he sort of, well, he was doing well in the Premier League, but the 2004 Euros is where I think everyone sort of stood up and was like, "Well, all right, we've got something special here, and he's going to be the next big thing." But like Jamie said, he was unfortunate enough to come around in the same era that Ronaldo and Messi were just starting their careers, and just coming onto the scene. And unfortunately, because those two shone so bright for years and years and years, it's made it really difficult for another player to come along and have the same people to have the same feelings as they would if them two weren't breaking records like they do, because everyone's sort of compared to them unfairly, because they're on
you're almost being put. You never put in that bracket. You're always put in the bracket just below them. Everyone always says, "Oh, they're like third in the world to Messi and Ronaldo." It's never like, "Oh, they're challenging them for being the best player." They're always just behind those two. I know what you mean.
But he was the one.
Yeah, but he never really came close to that. He had his great seasons at United, but he was always kind of part of the team. He wasn't the main man of United. It was kind of like he was this brilliant player, but he played alongside Tevez. He played alongside Ronaldo. Yeah, Berbatov. He had players around him that were brilliant, and he was just like this amazing player in with other amazing players. He wasn't like the amazing player, which everyone thought he was going to be. And his record for England is woeful. Personally, it's terrible. He never. He only scored his first World Cup goal in the 2014 one, was it? Where we had a dreadful World Cup. I think that was his first goal that he scored in the World Cup. And for someone of that talent, and being that good a striker, to not do it for your country doesn't really sit right, because that's where you want your big players to step up, and that's where you look back on sort of. But no one really did for England, so it's unfair to probably say that.
I was going to say, you could say that about all the players we've spoken about today. Really.
Yeah.
That's why I put Kane. Because as much as he's in the middle of his career, and we're talking about, we can have this chat in 10 years, he has done it at a tournament, albeit a tournament where a lot of teams underperform. But the fact is, he was top scorer and led us to a semi-final, which no one's done. None of these great players, the golden generation, they couldn't do that. They couldn't make themselves into a great team. As I say, that, not to push my argument, but that's exactly why I put Kane over the likes of Rooney, as much as I love him.
I think Rooney's one of them players that we'll look back on eventually and realise just how special he is. But I think because England fans have got that kind of grudge against that generation of players that never really performed for them, that we don't really give them the respect that they deserve. And the rivalries are still quite fresh. But when we look back on it, I think in probably about 10 to 15 years, when we're a bit older and a bit wiser, I think we'll probably look back and say, yeah, okay, he was probably up there with some of the greatest, because his record is.
Yeah, I don't think it helped him, the fact that he reached an age or a point under probably, I don't know whether Moyes, but definitely Van Gaal, where his career just seemed to just drop.
Flatline.
He was just he was gone. He'd gone from the leader of United, whether it be a team on decline or whatever, and then out of nowhere he was just gone, out of favour, wanting to leave,
dropping into midfield.
Yeah, went back to Everton. That whole thing of he wanted to play in midfield. I don't think that's that right. I think a lot of fans have the perception of he thinks he was above what he was. He thinks he was that level where he can dictate where he plays and all this stuff. And then obviously he went back to Everton, didn't work out, went to America, and now he's at Derby. So all that sort of happened at a fairly young age, whereas the likes of other great players, Scholes, Gerrard, whoever, they were at the top level still at 34, 35, pushing. Lampard was at Chelsea, obviously went to America, but then he was at City, and just things like that. Just little things that I agree with Dan. A lot of little things go against Wayne Rooney, and we probably will appreciate him a lot more in the long term.
Yeah, I see that. I think we've been blessed and cursed with our generation of,
unless Kane beats his record,
which will probably happen. Yeah, but if you look at the players that we've grown up watching play for England, obviously everyone knows that we should have achieved a hell of a lot more. But that being said, the players that we've been blessed to see play, that you like you said, we've spoken about Terry, we've spoken about Gerrard, Rooney, Kane. We haven't even spoken about you likes of Rio Ferdinands and Alan Shearer's had a mention, but not really been spoken about. Lampard. We've been absolutely blessed. Beckham, David Beckham.
David James.
Even other players. Oh, Big Davo. Big Seaman. Gazza.
Gazza's normally in these chats.
I did want to shout out Joe Cole, because I do think for pure, if it was going the rate of that it was pure talent, I think Joe Cole's well up there for just pure raw talent. I mean, he was great. Yeah, he was great. I think he was unlucky to play. He could have been anything.
Yeah, he could have been anything he wanted to be.
I think he was unlucky to play in the era he played in. I think he was England were badly coached and badly managed throughout, that golden generation, and the whole 4-4-2 and sort of sticking people in positions they shouldn't be in, and also I think under Mourinho, Joe Cole was brilliant, phenomenal, but Mourinho demanded a certain level of discipline when really a player like Joe Cole should have been given freedom to do what he wanted. So, I mean, if England were playing a 4-3-3 in that era with a sort of manager with a bit more free thinking mind, he probably would have gone on to do better things. I think Joe Cole, because he was really, really, really special.
We've been talking about Scholes as well. Like I briefly mentioned him earlier, but like we talk about our opinions of England's best player and that golden generation. Obviously, it's quite well documented that a lot of the great midfielders through that era from other countries, Zidane, Xavi, people like that, Pirlo. You ask them who the greatest English player was, and they pretty much all say Scholes. So he would have been in the conversation with a bit of fucking tactical.
I feel like some of those players are a little bit fickle though, because I'm pretty sure in things that Lampard's written and like books that Gerrard's written, they've all put quotes in there from like Zidane, Xavi, and the same people all saying the same.
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like these foreign players tend to say these sort of things at a time when they would have liked them to have played at their club. Do you know what I mean? But again, I think it shows a level of respect for the English game. They know that on the international stage, we may not have performed great. And I think a lot of that blame the players have to deal with. But I don't think, obviously, the fact that they weren't managed by the greatest of managers as well, that played them in the right positions, I don't think that's spoken about enough anymore. It's just the golden generation failed and the golden generation was shit and they should have done better. If they're not being coached and managed the right way, then they're going to find it hard to perform. And again, like I said, at the same time, they should still take some blame.
I think the FA got it wrong countless times.
Yeah.
I think Harry Redknapp should have been England manager when he was at the peak of his managerial reigns, and someone like that would have been. Someone like that would have been brilliant for England. Someone that knows the players, man management's brilliant. Man management's got to be important at international level because you're getting players together for a space of like 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time, or for a tournament where you're together for like 6 weeks. When man management is vital, and Capello was terrible. People were bored out their nut with him. Sven-Göran Eriksson, people didn't really rate him. You need a man manager that's going to sort of rally up the lads. Yeah.
Like a Billy, when Southgate came in, like he was so likable because he was honest and refreshing that we got behind the team. And even though we weren't the best team, we got through to that semi-final. Whereas, as Dan saying, someone like Harry Redknapp, nation would have loved him.
It helps.
It was like Steve McLaren.
It's nothing against foreigners, but it helps to be English
under pressure.
Yeah.
It does help to be English. Like Steve McLaren's just not a good manager, fair enough. But you bring in Sven-Göran Eriksson and Capello, who have both got great reputations in Europe for their managerial skill and what they've done.
Yeah, they're never going to connect.
Personally, I've always said this. I think whatever nation you are, your manager should represent that nation also. Because you're representing a country. You're going to these tournaments and you're playing these games and you're representing a country. And what better person to do that than someone that's from that country? And I agree with you. I think Harry Redknapp, we missed a huge trick not getting Harry Redknapp in for those boys. Huge.
Yeah. It's a shame. It's a shame. I think I've liked this debate, to be fair. I'll say that. Normally we kind of push for some sort of resolution, but to be fair, you boys have you've put forward good arguments for everyone. I'm happy to agree to disagree.
We should.
I don't think there's a result to be made on this. I think it's. I think
there is, and I think we should leave that result too. The fans.
Yeah, we can do. To be fair, I'm happy to do that.
Just put it up on the socials. Put up who we've said. Don't have to put why. Just put the players we've said and what we're obviously doing, and then we'll let the guys comment, and we'll see who comes out on top.
Yeah, happy to. And let's get the Lampard Scholes Gerrard debate on the go ASAP.
That will be coming soon.
We'll set aside a whole weekend for that. I think we'll need it.
Yeah,
that's going to be an overnight job.
Right. Done.
Right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure. Like I said, we will put this out on the socials, guys. You know what they are. But if you go to the description of the video, we'll put a little link to the socials there as well for you. And please comment, like, share, subscribe, do whatever you can. It all helps. Dan's disappeared because you haven't liked, shared, or subscribed a lot so far, so he's not happy about it. So he pissed off early.
I'm getting hounded for FIFA.
Seriously, we need likes, guys. I know it sounds silly, but it helps us out in what we're doing. And we're doing all this. We enjoy football, we love football, but it's for you lot at the same time. So get involved, comment on what you like, share what you like, and help a brother out. It's been a pleasure, guys. Great debate tonight, and we'll catch you guys on the flip.
See you later. Thanks very much.